Hello and welcome to your post-match reaction here on Four Lads Had a Dream. My name's Andrew and I'm joined tonight by three of my very favourite podders, Mark, Dougie and Cheryl. And we have a fascinating game to talk about. Rangers somehow, against all the odds, managing to get a draw with the last kick of the game. Mark, we'll go through the game sort of moment by moment, but just immediate thoughts after that game. It did not feel like at any point the Rangers were in command of that, and I genuinely feel we were quite lucky to get away with just a point there.
I think where I started is it's gutless, spineless, no desire in that team whatsoever. It's not the first week. We've seen it throughout the season. Too many players, not good enough. But a couple of chances throughout, and we'll go in a bit more detail as the pod goes on. But for me, that team, spineless throughout. No leaders, no desire, just lacking all over.
Yeah, no, I think I find it difficult to argue with that, to be honest, Mark. Cheryl, I mean, your immediate thoughts after the game?
Do you know what? I'm going to disagree with you slightly, Andrew, because I think there was a moment when it went to 1-1 that our kind of movement and our tempo was a wee better, and we actually dominated. And we were still dodgy at the back, but we looked slightly more promising. We were always dodgy. You can always, you can rely on that. But I thought we did get a grip of the game a wee bit more, right up until they scored, because we had that pressure in the second half. But it's just the old thing. Every week, it's just another example of how not to defend. That was criminal, watching that. Do you know what was 3-4 of them standing about doing nothing? And the space and the time, and it was an excellent finish, but the space and the time that Fatah had to run and weave through everybody, it was absolutely shocking. But I did think, I can't say it was a bright spot or anything, we got away with it, but I think there was parts of the game that we did actually dominate and look all right in.
Okay. Dougie, do you want to offer a moderate opinion in between these two, or you wanted to go for something completely off the wall instead?
Well, there's an improvement from the weekend. We created more chances, but there's still fragilities in this team. But ultimately tonight we sit fourth in the league, 9 points behind second place, and at the end of the day, a draw at this stage of the season is no good. We need to be picking up wins. We need to be picking up 3 points to put any kind of challenge on what's going to be Celtic now. Celtic have hit form at the right time. A draw at this stage of the season is just not good enough.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like we're looking to pick up wins. I think Danny Roll has done bits. I think he's managed to pull some wins out. We wouldn't have expected them, but I don't think that he's set Heather on fire. But by the same token, and a point I made in the group chat while we were watching the game, was that I don't think this is a very good squad. I don't think you've got a lot of options, whether that's on form or just in ability or indeed in mentality as well. I don't think that we have an 11 there that feels worthy of the name Glasgow Rangers, let alone a squad. So we'll touch on the lineup, Mark, briefly. Butland in goals, Tab at right back, Giga and Fernandez sitting there in the centre, with Mikoma restored to the left back, Raskin, Barron and Barron sitting with Danilo, Gasana and Bayrami in front of them, and then Miovski up top. So I think quite an attacking lineup, just at first glance, but yeah, it does show the kind of limitations of that squad. And it also begs the question, what do Curtis and Cameron need to do to get into this team?
Yeah, I was quite happy with Mikoma coming back in, just for a balanced perspective, given I think when we're playing Aarons at left back, he normally tends to go back in the park, just gives us that width. Defensively with Fernandez and Giga, gives me red flags, and obviously based on what we've seen tonight and throughout this season, it's given us a lot of problems. Barron and Raskin, I don't mind that, but I think you need then someone further up the pitch. Danilo was sort of given that role. You had Bayrami on the left, but Danilo obviously tonight just didn't cut it. And then Gassama, I think it was about 15, 16 minutes before I actually seen him on the ball. He wasn't really involved prior to that. And then Miovski, this season he's also came from Girona. Prior to that, he was also at Aberdeen and had quite a bit of success. But since he's been at us, he's done all right tonight, to be fair. But I just think, given the position, the way we play, he doesn't offer enough. And I think it's maybe just the style that we play than anything else. But I think you're right. Attacking-wise, it looks all right, but we just don't look like we're creating and doing enough throughout. As a confidence thing, I'm not so sure. I think it's more just where we are from a quality perspective. And all over that park, you name that team out, put that comparison to where we were last year. Have we upgraded on any of the positions? Not many. That's my concern moving forward.
Yeah, Darren McFarlane has gifted £5 to the channel. Thank you for that, mate. Didn't need to do that, but we appreciate it. Pointing out that our best players tonight were outcast from last season, Cheryl. And yeah, it's pretty damning. I mean, the £8 million missing free headers is definitely a point we'll come on to. But yeah, it does speak to the fact that, as we were talking about pre going live, Bayrami looks quite good in this team, but he was nowhere near the starting 11 last season. So it's kind of a shocking position that we find ourselves in.
It is telling. And do you know what? For me, I would be moving him into the 10. Keeping him in that role as a 10. He was the only player tonight that we know he's unreliable, but he was the only one that was willing to try something, try to take the game by the scruff of the neck and actually drive us forward a wee bit. We spoke about it before we came on, and it's the point that we keep coming back to. There's no leaders within this team whatsoever. There's no leadership. He at least offered a wee bit. He looked interested. He tried to create something. Things were coming off for him from time to time. But other than him, who you say was nowhere to be seen last season, there's nothing. There's nobody there. For me, you mentioned him earlier as well. Danilo, for me, his time is up. It's not working. Look at that miss as well. He'll crop up every now and again. Look at his goal against Hibs. That was brilliant. But we need that all the time. We need that every couple of weeks. We don't get that from him at all. We can't rely on him. We can't rely on the other two either. But for me, I would take him away and I would keep Bayrami in at the 10 because he at least gives you a wee bit more dig as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely fair. We certainly are blessed, Dougie, with an abundance of talent there. For one reason or another, we're just not seeing it from these guys. We're going to go through the game in detail because, unlike last weekend, we actually have things that happen during the game that are worth talking about. But certainly the lineup, while it's attacking on paper, I think, unfortunately, despite there being moments where it translated, we did not see that kind of like all-out attacking output really being represented on the pitch because we just looked ineffectual. And the less said about the defence as well, the better.
I think we've got to talk about what Danny Rule tried to do tonight versus the weekend against Falkirk. There was question marks over our creativity against Falkirk, and I think a large part of that was to do with the system and the team that he put out. You know, someone mentioned earlier on about Aaron's at left back. Even as a right footer, he's not someone that goes forward. He tends to be a bit deeper. Magoma was a much more attacking option on the left-hand side. But even ahead of them, Diamande dropped out tonight and it allowed us to go a wee bit more attacking. And the front line having Danilo, Gazzama and Bayrami behind Miovski. So we were much more offensive tonight. And what you've seen was the comparison of the two games is Falkirk will look quite solid as a unit. But as a consequence, we didn't create a lot going forward. Because we're so limited in our choices of personnel, the manager's tried to change the system, go more attacking. And on the flip side of that, we've then left ourselves exposed defensively and conceded very soft chances and ultimately soft goals. We've created a lot of chances tonight. I can't remember what the XG finished, but around the 80-minute mark, it was at 3.3. So it probably finished above 4. Which means we should have won tonight, right? And for me, there are question marks over the manager in terms of team selection, persisting with certain guys like Giga, who just should not be in the team. Cheryl mentioned Danilo. Danilo's not good enough to be a Rangers player. So there's question marks over the personnel that are being selected. But ultimately, the manager's got his hands tied behind his back because you look at the bench and then you start questioning, well, who can he bring in? Because the quality's not there. And that's why the January transfer window is so important. But he's trying to mix it up from a system perspective, and unfortunately, that's where the quality then lets them down, because when you've got that kind of XG, that means you've created good chances. And some of the chances that we had should have resulted in goals. And, Danilo's missed a couple of really good chances. Gassama's decision making is really poor at times, the final third. And Cheryl, obviously on the Sunday show, I mentioned about Sharmite. And my point about Sharmite is, if he didn't have the price tag, would maybe be prepared to give a young striker a wee bit more time and allow him to develop. And I said at the time, his price tag was always going to go against him. I don't care if a guy costs 8 million or he costs nothing. See, when you've got a free header in front of goal, it's a simple tap in. Effectively, you should be scoring and Rangers should be coming away with the 3 points. And that's what's let the manager down tonight. He said post-match, the only bit of post-match I kind of caught as I was preparing for the pod is I heard Danny Rule talk about, the desire from the players. It was there tonight. There was effort, but the quality is just not there. That we badly need reinforcements in January and beyond.
Yeah, and I think the bigger question that I don't think we're going to get to tonight is going to be who's making those decisions about those players coming in. Certainly there can be questions asked of Danny Rowe, and he's a relatively young guy as well, so we don't know if he's got the experience necessarily to be making those calls. We've seen before in a quite recent history how badly things can go when you empower a manager without a director of football to just go off and make those decisions by themselves, especially if they are then removed, and then you have a team that the next manager might not necessarily want. Now, I don't want to get catastrophizing and start planning for the next manager, even though, new manager time seems to come around earlier and earlier each year. But yeah, we don't find ourselves in a great position for this. Let's get to the game itself, Mark. We had, I think, a fair amount of early pressure from Dundee United early on. I didn't manage to catch the first 15 minutes live because I'm still coming home from work, but I listened to it on the radio, and it was all Dundee United from what I could hear. Quick succession of corners, and then there's an excellent run from the halfway line by Zach Sapsford, which I think takes out Magoma completely. I don't think Fernandez does enough to close him down, and it's a neat little chip over Butland to make it 1-0. Do you think Butland or Fernandez could have done better with that one? Should it even be getting to that point? Should Magoma have been better, like control prior to that? Or where do you think the main point of failure is for that one?
I think, first of all, Fernandez should foul him. If he's getting away and he's not going to get back further up the pitch, takes a yellow card, get back, organise, good to go. I think it starts with that. I think, to be fair, I don't actually think he's even sprinting to get back. On looking at him on Sunday, there's a couple of balls in behind. You see him sprinting. It looks like he's got a bit of pace about him. Just never looked like he got out of second gear. I think Giga needs to come over as well, along with Tav. I can understand at a starting point, well, Giga sits where he is in terms of they've got two players up the pitch. But as Dundee United press and get further up the park, Giga then needs to move over. Tav needs to move over. Tav could be left on a 2-on-1. We deal with that situation as it folds. But the fact he's then got all that space to come in, I'm not going to blame Butland. For me, I don't think Butland could have done more. He's chipped it over him. It's a good finish. But all in all, I think it starts with Fernandez. Take him out, take a yellow card, we'll get on with it. Doesn't get that, use your pace, get yourself back in. Don't think he does it. And then Giga needs to move over. So for me, there's 3 points there that could easily eliminate that chance. And to be fair, the boys finished it well, but from our perspective, it's absolutely appalling.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't improve from there. Cheryl, we nearly concede another one from a good header from them almost straight away. I'm listening to this on the radio, knowing that I need to do this podcast afterwards and thinking, do I just sack it off? Like, do I just call into Stevie and just go, lads, I'm not feeling it tonight, actually. It doesn't feel like it's worth it. Because it does not sound like it's a good time, Yeah.
Do you know what? The only thing, again, sorry, I'm going to be a wee bit of pace and disagree with Mark slightly because I thought Butland maybe went down a wee bit too quickly. But other than that, yeah, it was dire. I think Dundee United after that had about 3 or 4 corners in quick succession, and at every single one of them, we just looked really, really vulnerable. Really vulnerable. There was, as Mark said, there was nobody when Fernandes loses it over there covering that. And it was a great finish, but just really, really, yet again, piss poor defending. But as I said earlier, it's another example. It's another way that we've just been really poor. We don't have kind of one set way that we're losing goals. We manage to mix it up every week. That's the thing that we're consistent in, finding new ways. It was a term I came up with on Sunday of out-shitifying ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We don't just stick to one way of being garbage. We kind of mix it up slightly to take everybody by surprise. We're
innovative. Yeah, that's what it is.
We just went through a period of about 10, 15 minutes where we looked really, really vulnerable at the back. But then, as I said, I thought we started to move the ball a wee bit better. We moved with a wee bit of tempo and purpose. Whereas I think we've seen us probably before lose a second goal quite quickly after that. So again, I've seen us getting accused of being negative and it being a moan fest in the comments. So I'm going to try and polish a turd slightly, because that's what Kenny asked us to do, wasn't it? So I'm going to polish a turd slightly and say that we didn't go down 2 goals as we probably should have quite quickly, and we did press and move a wee bit quicker. There's a wee bit of positivity for you.
Cheryl, see on that period after Dundee United scored and the fragility at the back with the corners coming in and so forth, for me that comes back to our original comment about leaders on the park.
Yeah.
There's just a lack of leaders that when that ball hits the back of the net, that they almost kind of regroup, they reset, they get their shape back right again, they get the momentum going and they go at it again. And there's this team right now is just screaming out for a spine of a team, and it just doesn't exist. Right through the entire team, we don't have anyone who's prepared to just organise us and get us going again. And you actually, Andrew, you're probably going to mention about like substitutes when they eventually are made, which subs under Danny Rule becomes very questionable about who he's subbing, who he's not bringing on, when he's making the changes. But tonight he took off Nico Rasker and James Tavernier. See, when you're taking off your player of the season last year, your captain, that tells you everything you need to know about the lack of leadership in this team. They're the guys that should be grabbing us and dragging us through games, and nobody's doing it just now. The new signings aren't doing it, but even the established guys that should be doing it are not doing their job.
That's the one sub that I would agree with as well, Dougie. I thought Tav was really, really, really poor tonight. I thought his passing was piss poor as well.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, we obviously do manage to bring ourselves back into the game, Dougie. Set piece, we throw a free kick in, comes out to Connor Barron, who doesn't make the cleanest connection, let's say. But it comes back out to Jaden Magoma, and he throws in an absolute bullet. Like, this thing's from 30 yards out, and it's a phenomenal strike. His first ever senior goal. It's the kind of one you can see in Football Manager and like mystified, like why has this happened to me? But it was phenomenal to see. Really good goal, and I think it helped settle us down a little bit because we certainly looked a bit more in control immediately after it, at least.
What a hit it was! He deserves huge credit for the goal because it brings us back into the game, obviously, and it's a wonder effort that's got us back in, and that's what it's taken us today to get back into the game. Is a wonder goal and a penalty, and it's probably my biggest frustration about this team going forward is we don't score the easy chances. You're taking a great effort from Magoma. Magoma himself actually had a great chance later on in the game. I think it was second half with the ball across the face of goal and he's hit it straight at the keeper. But nothing can take it away from the quality of that goal. Connor Barron maybe needs to work on his shooting as well. I said it in the chat, his shooting's terrible, but ultimately it led with a block, it led to a great through ball and a great finish, and he deserves praise, Magoma. And I think Magoma had a decent enough game. He gave us that balance as a lefty going forward, and if that was Aarons talking about the game at Falkirk and what Max Aarons doesn't give, he wouldn't be in that position, nor would he be hitting the shot. So fair play to Magoma. Just need to see more of that. And not having to rely on wonder strikes or penalties.
Well, I'm sure eventually one of our strikers is going to contribute something, right? Can only hope. Yeah, I think, Mark, that first half kind of peters out. I think we look better following the goal, but there's not a great amount of cutting edge there. And then we get into the second half, no changes at half time. Both teams, I think, are just going flat out for it. It was truly end-to-end stuff in that first 10 minutes at least. It's a long-distance strike from Bayrami. It's followed by an overhead kick attempt, which hits the bar. And I think we looked very much like we were going for it, at least early on in that second half.
Yeah, I think to Cheryl's point earlier, at that moment in the second half, we did have a bit of dominance. For that first 10 minutes into the second half, it was pretty wild either end. But until we had that head knock, the game seemed to settle a bit, and I think it worked in our favour. We managed to have a bit of the ball. As you said, Danilo had a chance. But I think it's just the problem we've got just now, that quality we've got at the top end of the pitch in terms of creating easy chances. To your point, we've scored a goal from 30 yards and a penalty in the end. And I think that just sums up where we are in terms of the quality in the final third of the pitch. I think when we get into reasonable areas, Gassama was in a couple of positive positions, but it's just that final ball lets us down. I think for me, this season, watching us in particular, when we do get in the final third, generally not had that belief of we're actually going to do anything. If it's coming into Miovski, Danilo, Chamite, there's just not that belief there that we're actually going to penetrate and actually do something. We just lack that cutting edge to see us over the line.
Yeah, I think that's probably exemplified after this head knock where Miovski starts doing his best Dado Perso cosplay. We then get a great ball from Raskin. Gassama, who I think was probably our best attacking player, just in terms of his output. I wouldn't say he was good, but he was probably the most consistent in terms of contributing to the attack, Bayrami aside, probably. He's off the post, eventually managed to scramble it back in. Danilo has an opportunity from about 2 centimetres out, Cheryl. Really should be doing better with that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's not, I looked at it a few times, there's not really any excuses for it either. He offered, Dougie and I both said, very, very little tonight. And it might result in our sacking from 4 lads and you might never see Dougie and I again. We might be removed. There might just be like a stick that comes on and we get dragged off. But for me, I think, as I said earlier, his time's up. He just offers us very little. The other problem we have is the other 2 options offer us very little as well. I made the point in our group chat that we have a natural finisher on the bench in the shape of Finlay Curtis. We might come on to that a wee bit later, but what does he have to do to actually get on? Because he's one of the best finishers that we have at the club. But for me, the time's up for Danilo.
Yeah. See, on the Finlay Curtis point, obviously there's talk right now that Bailey Rice is going to leave at the end of the season in a pre-contract. And you can understand why he's leaving, but you can also understand why he's not getting a game, right? So he's had opportunities, not many, but he's not taken the opportunities. And I can understand why he's leaving, because he'll be able to go down south, get more money, develop in a different academy. Hopefully he'll kick on for his own sake. But Finlay Curtis has been given a couple of opportunities this season, and every time he's came on, he's taken those opportunities. It's sacrilege that he's sitting on that bench again, not getting his chance, because he's a guy who's came on and he's proven he can put the ball in the net. We are screaming out for people that can put the ball in the net. And, Antman obviously got a serious injury after Falkirk. He's out for 8 weeks. And when that came out, I thought, this is his chance. Curtis will get a chance now. And even tonight, he's still not got his chance. I'm sure it'll come. I'm sure it will come at some point. The manager referenced that he'd been injured during international break and he needs to get himself back up to speed again. There will be a time where Curtis will be brought back in again, and he's going to need to take his chance again under Danny Rule, because he's not really had much chance under Rule. But my God, when you've got a guy on the bench who has proven he can put the ball in the net and you're chasing the game, you would think you'd put him on. And that's what I meant earlier on by some of the subs that the manager's made have been questionable.
Look at the opposition that he did it against, Dougie, as well. Do you know what? He came in games where we were struggling early on in Europe, and he completely changed the game and got us the goals that we were looking for. I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
Yeah, we'll talk about the subs, I think, when we get to them. But before then, we have, unfortunately, a second goal to concede. There's a scrabble in the box. I think it's following a Dundee United corner, and we've got about 15 opportunities to clear this ball. so many players are around this, just watching it as the player goes through. And to be fair, it's a really good finish from Fatah to get the goal. I think deservedly their player of the match, and probably the player of the match in general. But Dougie, it's just again an example, and it wasn't the only example, but it's definitely emblematic of the incompetence of our defence. I think is the only way to really put it, because if you're competent, you get rid of that ball. You might not make it look pretty, but you get it away from the box, and we just failed to do it so many times there in the lead up to that one.
Yeah, it's a good finish. That definitely needs said. It's a great finish, and the keeper's got no chance on this one. I think if I was to sum up this Rangers team right now, I would just use the word heartless. There's just a real lack of fight and desire, and that goal sums up for me when somebody's out wide and they're dribbling the ball into the middle of the park to get their shot away. You're expecting bodies flying in, and Mark, you made the point earlier on about the first goal and Fernandez jogging back, and actually should have just wiped them out. There's that game management that we just don't have as a squad, and I think it all comes back to the inexperience and the lack of leaders. Is that the players? Is that individuals? We've got guys in the team who potentially just aren't fighters. As personalities and style of football goes, you don't always get guys that are prepared to throw their bodies on the line. Or is that a lack of team spirit and togetherness that a manager should be instilling within the squad? Because, I was having this conversation recently with someone. The best Rangers teams have had guys that are just prepared to put their bodies in the line and fight for each other. And you go back to the old phrases of a team that drinks together, wins together. I said it after the Falkirk game. Every time there was a misplaced pass, or somebody made the wrong decision, whether it be in the back or at forward, teammates were just on each other's backs. There was arms getting thrown about. There just looked like a lack of unity in the team. And sometimes when there's a lack of unity, you guys that aren't prepared to battle for each other. And there's just something missing for me right now about this squad. Whether it's their own personalities just don't suit Rangers Football Club and what we are, or there's a squad there that don't like each other, and there's something deep down. They need some team bonding that doesn't involve going in Loch Lomond for some cold water swimming, particularly in December in Glasgow. But this team needs some bonding. They need to like each other, and right now I'm just not seeing it. And that's where you can try and question the manager on certain things. One of the things that a couple of things I'm questioning just now is starting 11, is subs, so the kind of personnel side of things, but you can discuss them in terms of who's available, like trying different things, etc. I question things like whether the players are fighting for each other, and I would expect him to be driving that as the manager. And I'm questioning whether we're getting the best out of a bad bunch. I know this is not a great side, but you see guys like Asgard going away on international duty and putting in a shift, and the Norway manager talking about how he can want to change the game. It's Danny Rowe's job to get this team, to get the best out of this team individually and as a team, and it's not happening at the moment. I know it's another league game where we've not been beaten and he's got that record, but I think it masks a very big problem right now.
Yeah, I think the draw's not what we need. We need wins at this stage. If we want to have any hope of still being competitive in the league, then we need wins. Draws will not do at this stage. It's an away game. It can be a mixed bag. Dundee United are obviously high up in the league. We are not in a position where we can afford to be snobby about that. But a draw does us no good, unfortunately. But at this stage in the game, Mark, we're not even there. We're still losing this one, We have Gasala going into the box with a really good run and takes what looks like a dive. I don't think there's enough contact for him to justify going down. He picks up a yellow. And then at the other end of the pitch, we're probably lucky not to concede a penalty as Fernandez, I think, handles the ball. Inexplicably, VAR don't look at it. I mean, if that one's against us, then I'm shouting for a penalty there, and I genuinely think we're probably lucky to get away with one on that one.
Yeah, I think, first of all, Gassama, I don't think it's a penalty. I don't think there's enough contact there. I think he goes over through momentum more than anything else, but I don't think there's contact for a penalty. The Fernandez one, to your point, if it's against us, I'd be screaming at TV, obviously, calling for it. I think we have got away with one there. I think it's surprising for me, given the noise that's been around VAR recently, that that's not being picked up. I know the ball was still in play for quite a while after the incident, but I was surprised it wasn't called back, given balls obviously came down where his arm's at, it's bounced off it. For me, it's a pen. But look, we've got lucky with that one. But we've seen them given before, especially throughout this season. But for me, I think we've got away with that one. But Gassama, first of all, I genuinely don't see that being a penalty. I think it's more momentum's taking him down. Referee's giving a yellow card for a dive, but I don't think there's enough contact there to be given a penalty for us.
You can see the headlines over the next couple of days, so can't you? I mean, Michael Stewart was banging the drum on Premier Sports. The whole narrative right now is going to be that we got away with one. You know, Fernandez obviously handled the ball. You can question whether it's a natural silhouette. There's going to be people saying that's a penalty. And then on the flip side, there's going to be people saying that the penalty that we were awarded was not a penalty. It's going to be the narrative.
Yeah.
Just on Gassama, obviously, he had the incident where he was fouled, or he was brought down in the box. He was booked for diving. I don't think it was a penalty, but nor do I think he dived on that occasion. I think he genuinely fell, and it's not a booking for me, but we need to talk about Gassama, because Gassama's a player who started really positively, and Cheryl, on our Sunday show, we spoke about him being the only shining light at times this season. Mm-hmm. He has just dropped off a cliff, and it's probably quite a surprise to me, because he was Danny Rule's boy at Sheffield Wednesday, and I thought when Danny Rule came in that we were going to see a whole new side to Gassama, and it's not happening at the moment. He is almost quite one-dimensional. I compared him to Rabbi Matondo in jest on a previous Sunday show, but as weeks are going on, he's got the Rabbi Matondo one trick, which is to cut in and shoot, and I want to see more from Gassama, because there's times in the game today he's got himself into some really good positions, and he's tried that one trick when actually there's a pass on or a cross on that he should be taking. His decision making's been really, really poor, and I've seen someone there just saying that Gassama probably needs benched. He's been out the team, and a large part of that is because he's just became a dad. I don't know whether you've seen it, Jack Butland last year when his partner had a baby, I think the third or fourth. It did impact his games as well. It does impact you when you have a baby at home and you're up during the night and all that. Somebody needs to get that boy a nanny, because he needs to get back to putting in his best performances again.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably unfair to layer it at one player. I don't think any player particularly is doing well right now.
I'd be here all night otherwise, Andrew.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Can I just talk about the refs, Andrew? Yeah. Sorry, before we move on. I said this, I think, either last week or the week before. It's not unique to us getting decisions for us or against us. This is a Scotland-wide issue with the refs, with VAR. It's piss poor across the board. It works. It has worked in our favour today. But you look at that Hearts game. You look at the Old Firm semi-final. So this is a Scotland-wide problem. What I do quite like is that as a fan base, we're quite good at saying, well, no, actually, we got away with one there. We don't kid on that occasionally these things don't go for us, but they certainly go against us as well. But we know that this is not unique to us. It's across the board in Scotland.
Totally.
Yeah, well, it's similar to Rangers' quality of squads. The refs just aren't very good. These are the players.
Nobody cares. See when the decisions are going against Rangers, nobody cares. We're calling for a review. Nobody cares. But the minute there's a decision that is in Rangers' favour, all of a sudden VAR should be reviewed, and it's going to be the media headlines in the next couple of days. It's unbelievably predictable. But to Cheryl's point, as a football club, and I almost kind of contradict myself here because we've been quite embarrassing with some of the statements. We as supporters tend to take it on the chin and look at it objectively and say, right, it's up to us to still win the games of football on the pitch, and ultimately that's what we need to get back to doing. We need to, when it comes down to the weekend again, we need to get 3 points.
Yeah. It's always what it comes back to. Cheryl, we come on to the 3 subs. Danny Roll's obviously trying to make a change to the game. I think you can question the players coming off. You can question the players coming on as well. Danilo, Tav, and Raskin make way for Chaniti, Aarons, and Dio. Pretty much like for like in terms of positions. There's not a change of system really or anything like that. It is very much just replacing players in there. I don't know if it's the right call. Danny Roll can probably point to the fact that we won the game. That was definitely the right decision. But to be honest, I do not think anyone there came on and improved the team. In the case of Dio, I do not see at the moment what he's offering in midfield. I don't think Raskin's playing particularly well either, but I don't think Dio offered anything better. Aaron's maybe is, on paper a bit fitter, a bit more mobile than Tav, but he does not want to go forward even when he is playing on the right-hand side. And we'll come to Chimiti. But yeah, for me, it didn't change a lot. Yeah.
It's just a really good example of the lack of depth that we have, that there's nobody that came in. I would maybe argue slightly that Aiden's looked, like you said, slightly fitter. And Tav was really, really poor. Tav's passing was poor. And whether you think it was a penalty or not, it was Aiden's run into the box that won that penalty. It's just kind of like throwing shit at the wall, isn't it, at this point, and hoping that something sticks. We've been here before this season. I am with Dougie. I think we do maybe need to start talking. I'm sorry, I know that's a bit weird, isn't it, to say that?
I feel really uncomfortable.
I know you do, and I do too, and we'll talk about it at another point, but I'll just go with this just now. We do need to start having a wee think about his subs. I think I've said before, Danny Roll's playing with almost 1.5 or 2 hands behind his back with the absolute shower of crud that he's got in front of him at his disposal. But his subs are really, really questionable at times. I mean, what was it? Theo Asgard, was it a minute to go? Bringing him on, he's offered nothing. He has consistently offered us nothing, absolutely nothing. Not even a player that you think, right, we'll get, 6 minutes, 8 minutes worth of dig out of him, because he's just given you consistently hee-haw. So why he was brought on, I don't know, because he just offers us absolutely nothing. We could probably do a separate pod on what everybody's calling for, which is Cameron and Curtis, that they're nowhere near things. But for me, other than Aaron's, I don't think any of those subs were particularly great tonight.
See on the Cameron one, I was kind of going to call at it as well. You're chasing the game at this point, and you're taking Raskin off, who hasn't had a great game. You're needing to take the game to Dundee United away from home, a goal down. Diamande is not that player. He's not going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and try and drag you. Neither's Asgard, and that's why he didn't come on. But back to the Finlay Curtis comment, Lyle Cameron's there. Lyle Cameron is a bit tenacious like Connor Barron, but he's got a bit of an end product about him. He scored a lot of goals for Dundee last season, and he's never looked out of place when he's played for us. Why did he not get the nod? And at some point, the manager's going to need to explain why he's overlooking certain players, because right now it just feels a little bit odd. See if it's fitness, and it's because these guys have got injuries behind the scenes that we don't know about it. That's fine, tell us. But right now it seems to me, to your point, Cheryl, very questionable subs.
No, I agree. I mean, we did have Asgard come on for 5 minutes at the end there. I can't think of a single thing he contributed at the end. And yeah, you can't tell me that Lyle Cameron would offer less. I simply won't believe that. Even for the sake just of making the change for the change's sake. It was the same argument that was put to Russell Martin about wearing a suit. Like, you might not feel great about it, but it's an easy win. Do it just for the sake of doing it.
Do you know, I thought he would have been bang up.
Scenario.
Andrew, this was Dundee United. This would have been the ideal game to start Lyle Cameron, or at least give him a good half hour, because he would have been bang up for it. He would have been getting abuse for the crowd. I don't know why he didn't.
Is that not why you buy these guys from the Scottish League? Because they know what it takes to win games of football in the Scottish League, and then you just keep them on the bench. And it's, going back to Bailey Rice leaving, it's the reason why these guys are they're not wanting to see their futures at Rangers, because we're not giving them the opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's mystifying. I'm sure we will talk more about it. Mark, United have a free header, probably should score, and then we have a free header from about 2 yards out, and Shimiti somehow misses it. I know my old man's watching right now, and yes, Dad, I know you would have scored that, but it's absolutely mystifying, and I will continue calling him the £8 million man because 10 million only kicks in if he manages to hit certain metrics. And I don't think we're in any danger of any of those kicking in. So it's utterly mystifying how we parted with that much money for this player. I do not know how he manages to miss that one. I really don't.
The 8 million fraud. It's where we are. Like, to be fair, it's a brilliant ball in the box. His actual movement beforehand is actually very good. I think the issue you've got is when it comes in, take you back to the 90s, Mark Haley would have put the ball in with the goalie back then. But where we are now, just with Chimity, like, he's got to bury that 6 yards out, and I know the commentator was talking about lack of confidence, etc. It's not for me. I think it's just where we are with quality. It's just not got it. History over the last few years, his goal scoring record's absolutely appalling. I know he's been in and out of Everton, but even that, he's came up. We spent a lot of money on him. I think you mentioned it earlier in terms of if we spent maybe $1 million or $2 million, we'd probably be a bit more patient. Just give him a young guy, get him into the team, gradually nurture him, to Dougie's point. But I think it's one that we spent a lot of money. It's a big outlay for the club. And for me, first of all, he's got to be starting scoring goals. And to be fair, since he came in, he's not offered very much. And that tonight is just pretty much where we are in terms of a club and the amount of waste we've spent in the summer. My worry is moving forward. I know Kai put in chat before in terms of his presence and his attributes, etc., might get us some money back. But if he continues to deliver moments like that, I don't see anyone spending a decent amount of money for us to get any return. I just don't see it. The concerning part I do have is the longer it goes on, his value is just going to continue to decrease.
All I'm putting my hopes on, Mark, is that Thirlwell, gets a job elsewhere and then buys him for 15 million quid. I think it's the least he could do for us, really. But beyond that, I don't really see it, unfortunately. We have Asgard come on for Miolski, as I said. I have no other notes because nothing happened there. And then finally, the debit card payment comes through or whatever to the Scottish Refereeing Association. And we get the penalty in the 98th minute, I think, with 8 seconds left to go. Dow's not on the pitch. Bayrami steps up, Cheryl, and in fairness to him, it's a great penalty. I think there's obviously, and this is influenced by the Premier Sports coverage, I think there's maybe a little controversy about the penalty. I think on balance, it probably is one. Again, come back to if it was against us, or if it was us doing it, would I feel like my player was silly for going in on the challenge? Yeah, especially in the box, especially at speed. Yeah. So I think on balance, it's a penalty. But I think it's a well-finished one. And inexplicably, we finished with the old Bishop Desmond and managed to get the draw there.
Yeah. Do you know what it was? I felt a wee bit nervous because obviously Tav's off the pitch, Aston's off the pitch, but he took it incredibly well. And I think that's going back to the point that we all made earlier, that he was the leader on the pitch, the only person that kind of drove us forward and looked like they could do something, and balls of steel to actually step up and take that penalty and put it away as well as he did. For me, I don't think you can take him out the team. I don't think you can. You keep him as your number 10. Because we know he's inconsistent, we know he can be lazy. I think there's maybe issues around his attitude towards training, but he's got a World Cup. Are they? Yeah, Albania World Cup.
I think Albania, maybe.
Albania, they going to the World Cup.
Maybe.
Yeah, so
to be honest, Cheryl, it's not something I've been keeping track of,
Yeah, a wee bit more positivity. He's possibly got a World Cup to be playing for. I know Bayrami wasn't playing as a 10. I would play him as a 10. I've just seen that in the comments. I would keep him there as your 10. I think he would offer us far more than Danilo does in that role. But yeah, he took it extremely well, and I would keep him in.
Sorry, mate. I was just saying, Albania finished second behind England. They're in the qualifiers.
They're going to the World Cup.
There you go.
Cheryl.
Something to play for.
I was just going to say, Cheryl, from Barami's point of view, I think he's just a bit more direct. Just gives you that impetus when he's in that part of the pitch, number 10. Just, gives us a bit something different to what we've got just now. We're just lacking that. As I said, I think, but his point is he's just too inconsistent for my liking. But when he delivers, he can add a lot of value to the team.
What does that tell you about the summer recruitment? No, Barami came in last summer. He was a guy who didn't really nail down a place. Someone said in the chat, guys like Tom Lawrence were selected ahead of him last season. He's in there. He's the one that you're looking at as being undroppable because he's played well in 2 back-to-back games. For me, players sometimes do take time to settle, right? And Barami, you could say, maybe taking time to settle. For me, he's maybe a player that's got a bit to prove to get into the World Cup squad and he wants to play for Albania. All good ingredients, but you should be expecting that from a lot of people because there's a lot of World Cup places at stakes and nobody's guaranteed their place. But Barami's not good enough. And I hate to be so negative, right? But Barami is not good enough to be a Rangers starting 11. The fact that he's been spoken about as someone who should be in the starting 11, and you're right, Cheryl, he should be, is a testament to where we are right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, Dougie, as we finish that game, I think we can feel lucky to get the point. We've said already it's not enough. We need to be getting the wins. But yeah, it's another game and another sort of line in the narrative, which is that this just is not a very good squad. And I think that there are definitely questions to be asked over Danny Roll, his decisions in terms of the subs, in terms of his team selection, continually omitting Curtis and Cameron. It is bizarre to me because even if you're throwing stuff at the wall, you may as well add that into the mix and see if it does anything different. But yeah, again, it's just another disappointing game where we get a draw, but we don't even really look like we're worthy of that. And the league continues to look more and more like a long shot, and we're barely into December.
And on that cheery note, good night, folks.
We're happy, we're being positive.
Albania are going to the World Cup.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah.
I don't know about anyone else, but I just feel so disconnected right now to Rangers. I've been a season ticket holder now for a number of years. I love going to the games with my dad, but it's becoming turgid. It's a chore now, and see when you're paying money for your hobby and you should be going to football, you should be enjoying it. I don't enjoy watching this football team, whether it's at Ibrox or whether it's at home sitting watching it at telly. We are not a good side, and there's not a lot to get behind right now. And the manager's also pointed towards January. I think anyone who thinks that we're going to turn this around in January is deluded. January is a notoriously terrible month. We have so much in the squad that nobody's going to touch. It's going to be a very, very tough ask in January. And, we've spoken about Danny Rule. There's going to be serious question marks over Danny Rule between now and the end of the season because not many managers could get more out of this squad. And it'll ultimately prove Steven Gerrard right for not wanting to touch the job during the season. And poor Danny Rule is the brave man who stepped forward, and people are going to blame him for it. And it's sad because you can only work with what you've got, and we are a mess.
I think that's the biggest takeaway, Dougie, is that we do not have a good squad. We can try different things, but ultimately it just ain't that good. I'm conscious of the time because it's 11 o'clock at night. Good Lord, it's a school night. Some of us have got work to go to in the morning. Yeah. But I want to thank everyone who's turned out, particularly Dougie, for deciding voluntarily to come on and talk about this pod. You didn't even have to threaten you before the match or anything. You just decided to do it for a bit of masochism. So, Dougie, thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Cheers, good to see everyone. And I just felt I had to earn my drinks on Friday night. I couldn't continue just skiving off in the background. I actually had to change my top because I was sitting in my pajamas, and I had to change my pajama top to be on the pod. So there you go.
Well, Dougie, full well that's not an obstacle. Kenny, podcasts in his pajamas all the time. So, but he's an old man, so you got to forgive him that.
I don't want that comparison.
And Mark, thank you again. Continue to be a good voice for us. So thank you so much for joining us, mate.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. Talking of dress attire, I was still in my suit from work, so literally got home, dinner, watched that, and then got a shit. I better get changed for the pod. So yes, wardrobe change 5 minutes prior.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, we're all here sacrificing for the pod, lads. We're all making it work. Cheryl, again, thank you as always, my friend. Always appreciate you coming on.
No problem. I'm doing full COVID because I've got a jumper on, but I do actually I'm going Kenny. I've got my jammy bottoms on. I'm ready to go. Yeah. Are you as well, Dukes? Are you?
If you can see what's happening.
See, we're professionals here on Four Lads, all right? Let no one never say otherwise, all right? We are here, we are professionals, and we are here to work. That's what it's all about. Folks, I mean, honestly, the fact that there's over 4,500 of you tuning in over Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is phenomenal. We truly appreciate it. So thank you so much. Everyone following along, liking, subscribing, sharing the pods, the folk who are members as well, truly appreciate you. We are nearly at 12,000 subscribers now on YouTube, which is insane. At the start of the year, me, Stevie, Kenny were talking about, what our realistic goals were. And I think we were saying we could probably get to 5,000 by the end of the year. That's probably realistic. So the fact that we've blown past that, doubled it, and potentially are going to triple it is phenomenal. So, folks, we cannot thank you enough for your support. We always say that, but again, huge thanks to everyone for tuning in and following us. Thank you so much. It's definitely appreciated. Folks, we'll pick over the bones of this over the next few days. Certainly, we will have plenty more to discuss. And yeah, we'll keep following on. And can only hope the Rangers find another gear somewhere because we definitely need it. Appreciate you all tuning in. Thank you so much. And until we talk to you again, folks, goodbye for now.
The Four Lads podcast is sponsored by Rhino Express, Clydeview Joinery, Athol Industrial Solutions Limited, and CSD Air Conditioning, in partnership with Black Rooster and Art of Gold. Thank you for listening to or watching the podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show.